The Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wasallam was born in the year 570, known as the year of the elephant. He occupies a prominent position within the religion of Islam and is revered as the greatest personality within the religion. A man whose life has to be examined in depth, for there are many lessons to be learned and indeed many examples to be derived. So the date of his birth is differed on between the different schools in Islam. Our brothers in other schools celebrate his birth on the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal. We celebrate his birth on the 17th of Rabi' al-Awwal. It is vital that this isn't a cause of friction between us. Why? Sayyid al-Khumaini, may Allah bless his soul, used to stress on this week being a week of unity between Muslims. Because all of us are sharing a common denominator, and that is the life of our Prophet. It should be a case where on the 12th of Rabi' al-Awwal our mosques go, or our imams go to the mosques of our brothers and celebrate with them. It wasn't an easy first few years for him. Imagine in your first few years your father passes away, according to some narrations only a few months into his life. His father Abdullah passes away, and therefore Rasulullah is born an orphan. Hence the Quran saying أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى. When the Quran says أَلَمْ يَجِدْكَ يَتِيمًا فَآوَى, what does it mean? It means, did we not find you an orphan? The Prophet, when he was born an orphan. His mother Amina was alive, but his father Abdullah had passed away. And his mother Amina did what most Arabs do to their babies at the time. If you were of the noble aristocracy of Mecca, what would you do to your baby? After 8 days of the birth of your baby, the Meccan aristocrats would take their babies to the desert, so that their babies are suckled and breastfed by a wet nurse in the desert. Someone asks why, as in Amina is his mother, why can't she suckle him? Why does she have to take him to the desert? There were a number of reasons the Arabs would take their babies to the deserts, and especially the aristocrats. If you were poor, it wasn't that easy. But if you were an aristocrat, you take your baby to the desert for a number of reasons. Number one, and please understand these reasons, because they have a major role on the upbringing and the psyche of the Prophet. The first reason, it allows you to grow up in an environment where you are independent and you are a free thinker for the first few years of your life. What do we mean? We mean in the desert there isn't buildings and there isn't all of these forests surrounding you and lots of humans and shops and markets and trade. In the desert it's open. You can sit there and look at the creation and reflect upon your own creation. Reflect upon your own meaning in life. Reflect upon your own role. The Arabs who would send their babies to have their first 8 or 10 years in the desert would want that baby to be living in a world where they grow up as a child who is not told what to think, but is rather shown how to think. The first reason they take him there is that. The second reason is because Mecca's climate wasn't a healthy climate for children, both in terms of what they saw and what they breathed. Imagine you're a child growing up in a climate where you see baby girls being buried alive. Is that a good start to your life? And therefore some people ask the question, if God loves Muhammad so much, why let him have such a difficult beginning as an orphan? As in, why doesn't God allow him to have a natural beginning like everybody else, a father and a mother? When the Imam was asked this question, he replied, God wanted to ensure nobody protected and brought up Muhammad but himself. He wanted to oversee that the Prophet would not show obedience to anybody, even from his early life, except himself. Then after that what? After that his grandfather Abdul Muttalib looks after him. His grandfather dies within a couple of years. Then he is brought up by his uncle Abu Talib. His uncle Abu Talib acts as the backbone not only to him, but to the message of the religion of Islam. That uncle Abu Talib preferred his nephew even above his sons. And his wife Fatima bint Asad was exactly the same. His wife Fatima bint Asad, when the Prophet buried her, he said, "This is my mother. This is the lady who preferred me above her sons. This is the lady who used to clothe me and wash me and look after me. And she is the one who nourished me." You notice that these were the two who looked after him. And that's why the Prophet, from a young age, there is a certain question that is asked. What do we know about him before the age of 40? Because in a few moments, we'll look at him from after the age of 40. But before the age of 40, if you were to ask many Muslims, tell us about your Prophet before the age of 40, many are unaware of his biography. You notice that before the age of 40, when Abu Talib was bringing up, Abu Talib, the Prophet would latch onto him everywhere. To the extent that Abu Talib himself narrates, "One day I was about to leave for Syria on a commercial expedition. The young Muhammad was only 12, he latched onto me as I was leaving. When he latched onto me, it hurt me that this my nephew is an orphan. Let me take him with me." The narration states that he took him towards Syria. On the way towards Syria, they walked past a monastery. The monk, when he sees these people coming, they say to him, "We are coming here to reside for the night." The monk looks at them, what does he say? The monk says to Abu Talib, "All of you can come and are welcome to eat what you want to eat. But Abu Talib, I want to ask you a question." He said, "What is it?" He said, "You know that young man was walking alongside you. Bring him tomorrow with you as well." Abu Talib said, "Very well, I'll bring him tomorrow." The next day when Abu Talib came, he looked at him and he said to him, "Where's the young man? That young man who was walking alongside you?" He said, "My nephew." He said, "Yes." He said, "He's just over there." He said, "Call him towards me." At the age of 12, and this is one of our proofs within Islamic theology, that from a young age he was already inspired with the knowledge of God and the knowledge of his mission. At the age of 40, it's not that he became a prophet, it's that he was now told to announce his prophethood. Before that he knew, because when that monk comes and he sees him, he says to him, "In the name of Allah and Uzza." As soon as the Prophet heard this, he said to him, "Do not bring those names in front of me. Those are the most detested names to me. They were the idols of Quraysh." Then the monk said, "I want to give you some sadaqah." He said, "We do not accept sadaqah." Then he said to him, "Can I see the mark between your shoulders?" He allowed him to see the mark between the shoulders. He looked at Abu Talib. He said, "Abu Talib, if you did not know already," because Abu Talib is already knowing, "if you did not know already, then know that this young man is what? Know that this young man is the prophet who Jesus spoke about and who Moses spoke about. And beware of the enemies that he's going to face." And he at that moment said to him, Abu Talib said, "How did you know?" He said, "Forget these signs. When you were walking and Muhammad was next to you, I saw every tree bow down after Muhammad left it." There is this innate love for justice and removal of oppression. In which way? One of the greatest incidents in his young age was at the age of 20. And years later, he would always refer back to this. At the age of 20, he refers to when he joined and formed a group called Hilf al-Fudul. Hilf al-Fudul, what was it? In Arabia, many people would come for the markets. When they'd come from the markets, they'd come from outside the market area. When they'd come from outside the market area, the narration states, they'd come from outside the market area and they'd bring their goods and the people of Arabia would buy. One of these people came from Banu Zubayd, or some say Banu Zabid. He came to sell some of his goods to Al-As ibn Wa'il, the father of Ammar. When he sold his goods, he said to the father of Ammar, he said, "Al-As, give me my money." He replied back to him by saying, "Which money?" He said, "You've just taken my goods, I want my money back." He said, "There's no money for you, and you're a stranger in our land. You're not going to get your money back. And I'm one of the aristocrats of Arabia, so you might as well forget about it." This person, what did he do? He was so enraged, he went on one of the mountains in Arabia and he said, "O people of Arabia, I have come as a stranger to your land, and I have been involved in a business transaction, and none of you have sought to help me when this man has taken my rights. At least one of you speak up." A 20-year-old called Muhammad speaks up for him. He gets up and he says, "It is unjust for us to be like this with a person who is a guest in our location. And secondly, in a business transaction, how can we be unjust when the goods have been sold? Let us form a league which looks after the rights of business employees, and let us form a league which protects transactions within the Arabian state. How old was he? Remember, he wasn't old, he was 20. There is still no announcement of his prophethood. But from that young age, the first sign people noticed of him, a man who speaks out against injustice. We in 2011, the first example we take of him, how many of us speak out against injustice, be the injustice against Muslims or non-Muslims? Our Prophet didn't look at that man and say, well, that man is not a Muslim, so I'm not going to speak up what's right. Whenever we see any oppression anywhere in the world, we must speak out against that oppression. Because our Prophet from his young age taught us this. When he announced his prophethood at the age of 40, the question arises, what was the aim of his prophethood? The aim was nothing more but allowing mankind to meditate and reflect on their existence, in order that after meditation and reflection, mankind not only had respect for themselves, but they had respect for other creations of God as well. That's it. We made our Prophet's religion complicated, whereas his mission from the beginning was a mission which was simple. Arabians were in Jahiliyyah. If any society is stagnant, it means it's a society which doesn't reflect. And when the human doesn't reflect, then he is the cause of a virus in his society. When the Prophet began his mission, did he begin by saying, all of you pray namaz right now? Did he say, all of you, Shahr Ramadan, fast? All of you, keep a bed. All of you wear hijab. He began first by saying, mankind, reflect on your existence. First, at the age of 40, he asked people to reflect on their existence. Then he said, now that you've reflected, the first area I want you to remove is the area of racism in your society. Why? Because he knew when the human reflects, there'll never be a racist human being. Because what am I? Yes, because I'm a certain color, I'm better than another human. No, we were both sons of Adam, created from dust. You found that the first part of his biography was he spoke out against racism of any type. As in, how did Bilal come to Islam? Bilal came to Islam when one day he saw Ammar ibn Yasir was captured. When Ammar ibn Yasir was captured, the early aristocrats of Quraysh looked at Ammar and they said to Ammar, oh Ammar, are you the one who's trying to come forward and you're trying to say that Muhammad's religion is the one we should follow? Ammar said yes. He said, explain to me Muhammad's religion. He replied by saying, the Prophet talks of one God, and that God is one who is merciful to his creation. He has given them free will, and that God has a day of judgment where we will judge us, but he will not judge us on our race. He'll judge us on our consciousness of his presence. Bilal was standing there, he was a slave. At that moment, Bilal, one of the people said, Bilal, torture Ammar. Bilal said no. He said, what? Bilal, you black slave, torture Ammar. He said, no. How dare you, Bilal, we brought you up, torture. He said, I have never heard of a message where there is a religion where a man with my skin complexion is protected, where a man of my skin complexion is honored. Notice here that Bilal, when he came towards Islam, it's because number one, there was the avenue of reflection by the Prophet. He allowed the religion to be intellectually spread, not emotionally. Intellectually there was a spread. When Bilal heard this, Bilal would later on, the Prophet would destroy any area of racism. How? He would come forward and say, when he reached Medina later on, the Prophet would come forward and say that I want someone to call for prayer. The people came forward and they said, who is it that you're going to call? He said, Bilal, go up and recite the adhan. In one step, he destroyed racism right from the beginning. Therefore, number one, racism, Rasulullah taught that is to be destroyed from the beginning of his message. Number two, not only do you respect people of different races, learn to respect people of different religions. Because in the early years of his prophethood, his companions were being tortured. So the Prophet came to Ja'far ibn Abu Talib, Ja'far the son of Abu Talib. He said to him, Ja'far, go to Abyssinia, leave with the companions. Ja'far said to him, where shall we go and why? He said, Ja'far, go to Abyssinia because you will meet a Christian priest. Notice the message. On the first level, he wants to remove racism. You respect other humans. Then number two, respect people of other religions. If their principles are the same as ours, then they are closer to us than people of our religion who are hypocrites with our principles. Thirdly, let them respect the role of the woman in society. Because if I give the rights to the woman, then we'll have great nations. Notice what he does. First, the woman is not to be buried alive. Second, the woman is to inherit and not be inherited. In the past, woman would be inherited. The Prophet comes and says, no, she has the right of inheritance. Number three, a dowry is to belong to the woman. In the days of Arabian Jahiliyyah, the dowry goes to the father of the girl, not the girl. When he came, he said the dowry goes to the girl herself. Number four, heaven lies underneath the feet of a woman. Heaven lies underneath the feet of the mother. When the Prophet, one day, a Jewish young man becomes Muslim, he comes to the Prophet. He says, "O Prophet of God, my mother is Jewish, but I am a Muslim. How do I treat her now that I've become a Muslim?" The Prophet said, "You treat her better than you used to treat her before." Many people would come and say, Muhammad spread his religion by the sword. Whereas the reality is those battles that occurred were defensive battles and they were not offensive. If they were offensive, then you could say that he spread the religion by the sword. Whereas on the contrary, they were what? They were defensive battles. Were they defensive battles to protect Muslims only? No. The Quran came forward in chapter 22, verse 39 to 40 saying what? Were it not for us telling our Prophet to come out and protect himself, there would not be a single church, synagogue or mosque in existence in Arabia. I ask you, if this Prophet came to spread his religion by the sword, why is the Quran talking about churches and synagogues? That after the battle of Badr, when he takes those prisoners, some of his companions say to him quite recklessly, "Let's kill them." He says, "No. Let's treat them with the best of treatment and let's say to them something." They say, "What is it?" He says, "We will ransom them if they teach 10 of our people how to read and write." From the beginning, it was a message in Medina on a focus on education. Seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. Today's Muslims seek knowledge from the cradle till marriage. After that, become lazy. Seek knowledge from the cradle to the grave. Read until the final moments of your life. The value of a believer is what? Is their knowledge, is their wisdom. You notice, what does he do? He doesn't want the prisoners tortured. No. If you can teach reading and writing, then these are the basis of a great society. And that's why before he died, he did what any great leader will do. He made it clear to his people that even though I am dying, I will first ensure that I leave behind guidance for you. He left behind guidance on the day of Ghadir when he raised the hand of Ali. And he made it clear to the people that I will never leave this world without ensuring that there is a guide for you who continues to protect the message in the way I gave you the message.